You know, when people talk about what's wrong with America, some of the things that usually come up are defense spending, social justice issues, COVID, how we treat each other, right? But we never really get down to the core issues. We never get down to the brass tacks of the real problems. And it does amount to the economy, right? Why do we have social injustice? Why do we have wage disparity? Why do we have such great wealth inequality? And it comes down to economics. Our government would rather give billionaires money and corporations money than the citizenry who actually this country relies on, right? Without workers doing the work, no work gets done. And we saw that during the COVID shutdown for those 2 months, this nation's GDP dropped by 34%. And then, of course, the social injustice started coming. We need to go back to work. We need to go start going to the movies and to restaurants and this, that, and the other. And once that started happening, we went back to normalcy, and our labor movement was immediately crushed. Yet, the PPP loans were given out hand over fist to all of these businesses, small or large, and they were then later forgiven. So once again, a public influx of public monies given to private entities, while the citizenry suffer. So how do we tie this in? How do we address this issue? And how do we simplify it down to a feasible and addressable problem, right? We can talk about labor reforms, and that's true. Those are needed. We can talk about wage inequality, and we would be correct in saying so. And we'll talk about taxation in a moment. But in reality, it comes down to jobs. And what it comes down to jobs is how we're investing in our economy, right? The private sector only cares about profits for their shareholders and for themselves at the top, right? The C-suite dictates the terms that we must follow so that they can make the most money off of our labor and our performance. But as a country, we have the largest employer in our nation, which is the federal government, right? And so the federal government, being the number one employer in the country, addresses the issues of healthcare access, housing control, fair wages, having benefits, having a retirement, having good job training, and an actual measurable metric to getting promotions and raises and the next and the third. So why do we not then choose to invest in our own country? We give billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight a proxy war with Russia. We give billions of dollars to Israel to commit genocide against Palestinians. And we give God knows how many billions of dollars to other countries to commit war crimes of one sort of another. Yet our own country, our own countrymen, our own citizens are homeless, children are starving, our education system is the worst amongst developed nations, yet our law enforcement is the most heavily funded domestic police force in the world. Our prison system is the number one in the world, with the highest number of incarcerated citizens in the world. Our public investment is in incarceration and in putting citizens in cages and throwing away the key. And let's not even get started on the racial biases that incurs. So it does come down to jobs. It does come down to investment in our society and where we choose to put those monies. What I propose as your future president is to invest in our nation, invest in our infrastructure, a nationwide fiber optic network, a nationwide clean energy network, a modernization of our power grids. I'm looking at you, Texas. A investment in high-speed rail and mass transit systems across the nation, distribution hubs to facilitate and further improve the ability to transport goods across our great nation, to invest in new population centers, to invest in new areas where people can work and grow and prosper and lay down roots. And in so doing, just like during the Eisenhower administration, when the highway system was built, we will dramatically increase the economic throughput of our entire country, improve transportation of our entire country, and make our vast nation that spans 3,000 miles across and over 1,000 miles from top to bottom. We can turn that into a much smaller world, a much smaller ecosystem, so where it is much more feasible to travel from coast to coast, to commute. Imagine if you could commute to New York City for work by living in Ohio, or commute from Maine to California in 10 hours or less without having to deal with airport security. The amount of quality of life improvement we could achieve by investing in jobs that build our nation's infrastructure are immeasurable. And that is the future we can build together.